Hi, my name is Jamie Motor. I am the Adapted Recreational Education Consultant for the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. This section of the training will start with an exploration of the differences between the two types of reporters, permissive and mandated, with an explanation of why you fall into the mandated category. We will also discuss the process for reporting child abuse, the protections that are built in to the Child Protective Services law for reporters, and the consequences if a mandated reporter fails to report suspected abuse. Finally, we will look at the systemic response to reports of suspected child abuse. Let's get started. Now let's take a look at the Child Protective Services system. As mentioned earlier, there are two categories of reporters of child abuse, permissive and mandated. Permissive reporters are those who can. Everyone and anyone can be a permissive reporter of child abuse and may make a report of suspected child abuse. Mandated reporters are those individuals who come into contact with children in the course of their employment, occupation, or practice of their profession. They are obligated by law to make a report anytime they have a reasonable suspicion that a child they are aware of through their employment has been abused. Permissive reporters may report anonymously. Mandated reporters may not. By law, the mandated reporter receives limited information regarding the outcome in efforts to protect the privacy of the child. Mandated reporters are entitled to certain information in regard to the outcome of the report they made. It is limited to the final status determination and services or supports that were provided to protect the child. The reporting process begins when one mandated reporter's view is that there is reasonable cause to suspect child abuse. It is not our job to investigate, only to report based on a reasonable suspicion. Again, school policies and procedures may dictate who completes the CY-47, which is the written report of suspected child abuse. Please review your school policy. The form must be completed within 48 hours by a mandated reporter to the best of the reporter's knowledge. It does not have to be 100% complete in order to submit to the local county Children and Youth Services. Keep in mind that you do not need a release of information waiver to report information about the alleged incident. Also, no parental permission is required for photos and/or X-rays to document abuse. Reporting child abuse supersedes HIPAA regulations. This is what the CY-47 form looks like. It includes the following information: the names and addresses of the child and the parents or other persons responsible for the care of the child if known, where the suspected abuse occurred, the age and sex of the subjects of the report, the nature and extent of the suspected child abuse, including any evidence of prior abuse to the child or siblings of the child, the name and relationship of the person or persons responsible for causing the suspected abuse, if known, and any evidence of prior abuse by that person or persons, family composition, the source of the report, the person making the report and where that person can be reached, the actions taken by the reporting source, including the taking of photographs and X-rays, removal or keeping of the child, or notifying the medical examiner or coroner, and any other information which the department may require by regulation. Remember, when reporting child abuse, it is important to focus on the facts and try to keep the emotion out of it. It is imperative in this day and age that schools have policies and procedures for child abuse reporting in place. Here are some factors that should be considered when schools are creating or updating their procedures. First, who will be the individual that makes the call to Childline? Who will notify the local county agency? Next, who will complete the CY-47 and mail to the local county agency? Also, what is the school district policy and procedures regarding photos? This is often done with the school nurse and witness, but check your school's recommended procedures. We mentioned that by law, mandated reporters are allowed to photograph injuries, but schools may vary on this point. It is recommended that photos not be taken if it is distressing to the child or if injuries are on or near the genitals. Another important factor to identify is who will interview the child. It is critical that the child not be put through multiple interviews. It can taint their testimony and may actually do more harm than good. This is why it is important to have a policy and procedure in place. Following your school procedures will help to protect you as a mandated reporter, but there are also other protections built into the law. Regarding immediate protective custody, only law enforcement, physicians, and medical directors are permitted to take immediate protective custody of a child. Children and youth workers must obtain a court order if they feel protective custody is necessary for the safety of the child. Keeping a child without proper authorization is illegal. There are 5 important reasons to report suspected child abuse: the long-term effects on children who are abused, immunity from civil or criminal liability, a safeguard against discharge or discrimination at work, confidentiality, and consequences for failure to report. It is important to cooperate with the investigation. Again, you do not need a release to share pertinent knowledge of the alleged incident with investigators and testify in proceedings if necessary. The law also specifically says that any person who is required to report or cause a report of suspected child abuse to be made, and who, in good faith, makes or causes the report to be made, cannot be discharged from employment or discriminated against with respect to compensation, hire, tenure, terms, conditions, or privileges of employment. In regard to confidentiality, mandated reporters must identify themselves when making the report. However, they should be treated as confidential informants by all law enforcement, and the mandated reporter's name should never be given to the family by caseworkers. The only exception to this is when a case is turned over to law enforcement. At this point, confidentiality will not be kept so that the police can question the reporter as part of conducting a proper investigation. Finally, there are serious consequences for mandated reporters who fail to report child abuse. Not only is the failure to report one of the 17 criminal offenses that prohibits you from working with children, but also it is punishable by law. A first violation is punishable by up to 1 year in jail and/or $2,500 in fines. Second or subsequent violations are punishable by up to 2 years in jail and/or $5,000 in fines. Also, let's not forget that failure to report continues to put a child at risk. If a report gets numbered by Childline, within 24 hours the county must see the child to complete a risk assessment and safety assessment in order to determine their course of action. They will have 30 days during which to complete the CPS investigation, which can include interviews and other evidence collection. Under certain circumstances, this investigation can be extended to 60 days. CPS workers may also petition the court for emergency protective custody at this time if they deem it necessary. Finally, CPS can also refer the case to law enforcement for criminal investigation if there are certain circumstances, including homicide, sexual abuse and exploitation, serious physical injury such as burns or broken bones, serious bodily injury, and abuse perpetrated by a non-family member. After the 30-day investigation period, which can be extended to 60 days under certain circumstances, the status will be determined. Cases can be founded, indicated, or unfounded. Please note that all of these determinations are maintained in accordance with the Child Protective Services law. A founded status is only given to cases if the court has ruled in a civil or criminal court proceeding that the child was abused. This remains on the Child Abuse Registry indefinitely. An indicated status is given by the county agency when they have determined that substantial evidence of abuse exists based on their investigation, medical evidence, or admission of abuse by the perpetrator. This also remains on the Child Abuse Registry indefinitely. An unfounded status is given when the evidence obtained cannot support a finding of abuse according to the law's requirements. And within 120 days after a 1-year report period, since the initial Childline report, information is irretrievably destroyed or expunged. We just reviewed the 2 types of reporters, focusing on what makes you a mandated reporter. You are now aware of the process for reporting child abuse, including making a call to Childline and submitting the CY-47 written report. You also have an understanding of the protections that you have as a mandated reporter under the Child Protective Services law and the consequences you will face if you fail to report suspected abuse. Finally, you know the system's response to reports of suspected child abuse and the resulting status determinations of founded, substantiated, and unsubstantiated. In order to make sure that you understand the key concepts for this section of the training, let's review the associated true or false activity and the justifications for each answer. Please answer the following true or false statements. Number 1, a mandated reporter needs to hear directly from the student that abuse has occurred before calling Childline. True or false? The answer is false. If information or hearsay is enough to cause a reasonable suspicion of abuse in even one reporter, then it should be called into Childline immediately. Number 2, you need a release of information waiver signed by parents to share knowledge about alleged abuse with the county. True or false? The answer is false. No release is needed to cooperate with the investigation. Number 3, you are not allowed to detain a child at school beyond their dismissal time, even if you are concerned for their safety. True or false? The answer is true. If you feel they are in immediate danger, place a call to law enforcement. Number 4, the majority of reported cases are determined unfounded. True or false? The answer is true. Don't let this dissuade you from reporting. You are not responsible for investigating. Even if there is not enough evidence to substantiate claims, services can still be provided. Number 5, there will be no repercussions the first time that you fail to report suspected abuse. True or false? The answer is false. Even a first violation is punishable by fines and imprisonment. In the following scenarios, please read each situation and determine if there is reasonable cause to suspect child abuse. If yes, why? And if no, why not? What actions would you take? Laura is an 11-year-old girl disclosing to you that her 14-year-old brother was babysitting her, and when her younger sister went to bed, he forced Laura to have sex with him. Is this suspected child abuse? If yes, why? If no, why not? What actions will you take? The answer is yes. This situation would be a case of sexual abuse or exploitation. He resides in the home, is over 14 years of age, was in a caretaker role, and even if he wasn't 14, he would still be considered a perpetrator under the definition of the Child Protective Services law. Your action is to call Childline immediately to make a report of suspected child abuse. It is recommended that after calling Childline, follow up with a courtesy call to County Children and Youth Services. Within 48 hours of calling Childline, complete the CY-47 report form and submit it to County Children and Youth Services. Tommy is in your program, and you notice he hasn't been eating lunch. He discloses that his tooth hurts. You contact the mother. Mother agrees to take Tommy to the dentist. A couple of weeks pass, and Tommy continues to complain about his tooth and becomes tearful at lunch. You notice that the tooth and gum appear to be infected, and again call the mother. Mother reports she can't get a dentist appointment. You make the appointment the next day with a dentist associated with your program and let the mom know that she can take Tommy for free the next day. Several days later, Tommy is experiencing more severe pain, presents with a fever, swelling, and has not received treatment. Is this suspected child abuse? If yes, why? If no, why not? What actions will you take? The answer is yes. There are indicators of serious physical neglect because the condition of his toothache was allowed to become worse, and now there is a serious physical condition causing the child severe physical pain. There is enough to have reasonable cause to suspect serious physical neglect or child abuse. Your action is to call Childline immediately to make a report of suspected child abuse. It is recommended that after calling Childline, follow up with a courtesy call to County Children and Youth Services. Within 48 hours of calling Childline, complete the CY-47 report form and submit it to County Children and Youth Services. A woman from the neighborhood shows up at your house and tells you that she is worried about the family that just moved in behind her house. She said the father is very rude and intimidating. There is a young girl, age 7, and her siblings living with mom and dad. She reports that for weeks she has witnessed and heard the parents arguing and cursing at all hours. The girl seems very unhappy, doesn't play much with the other children, and is seen home on some school days. The woman also reports that her brother used to live near this family when the girl was 4 years old and witnessed the dad in an angry rage throw a shovel at the girl, nearly hitting her, and then chased the girl into the street. He said the mother intervened and brought the young girl safely into the house. Is this suspected child abuse? If yes, why? If no, why not? What actions will you take? The answer is yes. It is reportable as child abuse because of imminent risk. Although one incident is not recent, a call to Childline is warranted and may help with supports and services to improve the situation for this child and her family. It should also be suggested to the neighbor to make a referral as she witnessed the incidents firsthand. Document your referral and County Children and Youth staff response and their contact information. You notice one of your middle school student athletes is having difficulty walking and participating in contact drills. He explains that his back is sore, but you notice some blood seeping through his jersey. He refuses to let you look at it and pulls away. Concerned about a back injury, you insist, and as you lift his jersey, with closer inspection, you notice 4 distinct circular burns on his lower back that are infected and several similar scars. He explains when he is bad, this is how his parents punish him. He begs you not to tell his parents. Is this suspected child abuse? If yes, why? If no, why not? What actions will you take? The answer is yes. This situation would be a case of serious physical injury or child abuse. The injuries are suggestive of cigarette burns. Severe pain and temporary impairment is indicated by his difficulty with participating in contact drills, complaints of a sore back, and infection. The location of the burns indicate that it is unlikely that a child could have inflicted them on himself or that they were of an accidental nature. In addition, there were several similar scars indicating there may also have been recent abuse. Note that it is important to be aware of other indicators and warning signs of abuse, as there may not always be physical indicators present at the time of the reporter's suspicions. Often, children who are being abused display characteristic behaviors like the warning signs that we reviewed. Your action is to call Childline immediately to make a report of suspected child abuse. It is recommended that after calling Childline, follow up with a courtesy call to County Children and Youth Services. Within 48 hours of calling Childline, complete the CY47 report form and submit it to County Children and Youth Services. Desiree is a 12-year-old girl living with her mother and 16-year-old sister Haley. Mother and Desiree have a conflicting relationship as Desiree insists on having the same freedoms and privileges as her older sister. She has stayed out past curfew, been caught cutting school, and is escalating in her challenging behaviors. Last night, Mother caught Desiree with a boy in her bedroom. After a period of arguing and destroying some bedroom items, the mother threw an iron at the daughter's head, and if not for ducking behind the furniture, it would have hit her. Instead, the iron broke the window and landed in the front yard. Is this suspected child abuse? If yes, why? If no, why not? What actions would you take? The answer is yes. There are indicators of imminent risk because the girl would have been injured by the iron if not for ducking behind the furniture. There is enough to have reasonable cause to suspect imminent risk or child abuse. Your action is to call Childline immediately to make a report of suspected child abuse. It is recommended that after calling Childline, follow up with a courtesy call to County Children and Youth Services. Within 48 hours of calling Childline, complete the CY47 report form and submit it to County Children and Youth Services. Some girls in your physical education class approach you because they are worried about Amy, their friend and fellow classmate. The friends report that she doesn't want to spend time with them and has withdrawn from them. They state she appears sad and they saw her alone crying today. They also think she is embarrassed by her dad. They tell you that Amy's father is really hard on her, and when they have visited the home on several occasions, they witnessed him calling her names, telling her she is a whore, cursing at her, and telling her he regrets the day she was born. When Amy comes in next period, you notice she is wearing a long-sleeve shirt. As she jumps for the ball, you notice numerous cutting marks on her wrists. When you share your concerns with her, she replies, "Maybe he's right. Maybe we would both be better off if I was never born." Is this suspected child abuse? If yes, why? If no, why not? What actions would you take? The answer is yes. There is reasonable cause to suspect that there are indicators of serious mental injury or child abuse because the girl's self-injury, cutting behavior, and depressive symptoms may be connected to the actions of her father. Your action is to call Childline immediately to make a report of suspected child abuse. It is recommended that after calling Childline, follow up with a courtesy call to County Children and Youth Services. Within 48 hours of calling Childline, complete the CY47 report form and submit it to County Children and Youth Services. The kicker for your football team is a 14-year-old boy. He comes into your office upset and tearful because his missed kick cost the team the game last night. He reports that he has a headache and his arm is sore. You detect there are bruises and scrapes on his upper arm and a bump on the back of his head. He breaks down and tells you that a father of one of his teammates was so mad at him for losing the game that the father grabbed his arm, shook him, and then shoved him backward into the bleachers, cursing at him that it was his fault. Is this suspected child abuse? If yes, why? If no, why not? What actions will you take? The answer is no. The suspected perpetrator does not fit into the 4 categories of a perpetrator as defined by the Child Protective Services law. Note that if this were a school employee, such as a coach or assistant coach, they would also not fit into the 4 CPSL descriptions of perpetrator, but would fall under a separate category called student abuse, which will be described in another section of this training. Although the individual does not fit into one of the 4 perpetrator categories, or student abuse, the reporter must still call Childline. When the investigation begins, the County Children and Youth Agency will determine the course of action and involve the proper authorities, including law enforcement. It is important to note that even though an incident does not fit into the CPSL definition of child abuse, other reports can be made to the proper authorities, which may include civil and criminal actions against suspected individuals. Childline can help determine the course of action. Thank you for your attention to these important topics. Please move on to the next module.